Hello and welcome to this talk back on the D4 Tabletop Creative Conference. I'm Becca Scott. I'm here with Paula Deming, and we're going to talk about building communities through tabletop gaming and our journeys to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Paula.
Hi, Becca. How are you?
Oh boy, I'm good now that I'm here looking at your face.
Hey, same.
I think that there is this nervous laughter of stress behind both of our voices because we both have this habit of doing a lot of things and saying yes to everything, that we're always have a to-do list a mile long. So let's
Yes.
to kick it off. Let's start by talking about some of the things we do, or maybe just a bit more of Paula. What was your journey to becoming a tabletop content creator?
Oh my goodness. And what a journey it's been. Well, currently I do work on, honestly, I'll say it's too many things. I feel slightly embarrassed whenever I start listing off all the things I do because I feel like I'm contributing a little bit to like hustle culture, which I think is actually really toxic.
Which is very much related to burnout culture.
Yes, and it's bad. But right now, I make the board game sketch comedy series Things Get Dicey. That is what launched me into board game content creation. So we'll revisit that in a moment. But I'm also a contributor to the YouTube channel Watch It Played. I'm a regular cast member of the board game comedy panel show podcast, This Game is Broken. And I stream board games over on Twitch for Gen Con TV, as well as on my own personal channel, which is Paula Deming. Those are most of the board game things I do, I think.
That's so many.
It's a lot.
Didn't this game is broken? Weren't you nominated for an award for that show?
We were nominated for a Golden Geek Award, which are the yearly awards that Board Game Geek does, and we were a runner-up. So Very Wrong About Games won, and then we were a runner-up along with Board Game Barrage, which is really pretty cool.
I love Board Game Barrage.
I know, right?
Those guys are so nice.
Yeah, they're really nice. So we came in, I guess, second place, which, that's pretty good though.
In good company.
Right? Yeah. I was like, oh, and Board Game Barrage is here? Okay.
It lets you know that you can trust the opinion of however they were voted, you know?
Yes, that's right. Because all good taste all around in the winners.
Yeah. Good taste is objective, I think. Is the point I'm making.
It is. It's totally objective. It's not like a matter of personal opinion at all.
Nope.
Yeah. So how did this all start for me? I'm an actor. Becca and I'll just say this, we actually know each other because we used to do improv together.
Yeah.
Before either of us.
Biscuits.
That's right. That was our team name.
Yeah.
Very clever. But before either of us even really were doing this sort of content for board games, we were doing improv together and acting. And I've made a lot of content for the internet, a lot of web series that no one watched. And as I was doing that, I was playing more board games. My partner is very into board games. And we played Betrayal at House on the Hill. And it appealed to everything in me that loved acting. I was like, I'm the character. We're living out this story. Like, creepy things are happening. It's different every time. And I was just like, yeah, let's do this. Let's get into this hobby. And over the years, as I was watching more and more board game media myself, I started to feel like I know that women are playing board games, but I don't see them in a lot of these videos. Should I just in the back of my head, I was like, I know how to make videos. Should I make videos about board games? Not about being a woman in board games, but just being like, hey, I'm here. This is normal. And I didn't want to make board game reviews, maybe because of some imposter syndrome. I thought, I don't have a journalistic background. I don't know how to do a review. Who would want to listen to my opinion anyway? And the field is very saturated with review content. So I was like, I don't want to do that. But, I have all these ideas randomly jotted down about jokes that have to do with board games. Every time we'd have a game night, like something funny would happen and we'd crack a joke about it. And I started to think, what if I did weird little sketch videos, but about board games? Kind of like if you're familiar with Semi Co-op, I looked at the Semi Co-op comics, which are these short little comics that are funny about board games. And I was like, kind of like that, but in video form.
I want to interject and say it's not like you hadn't already been making a bunch of sketch content. You already had a lot of hours at this skill. Yeah.
Yes, I'd put in a lot of time doing comedy, doing improv training, doing sketch shows. I did a bunch of like sketch cage match stuff at iOS. I did all these things. I was in, like I said, a lot of comedic web series before this that no one watched. And I went, what if I take this thing that I feel like I know how to do and that is special for me, and combine it with this other thing that I love, and we'll make a video and we'll just like see how it goes. And it went well.
Yes.
People liked it and watched it. So I just kept making it. And that in turn has led to a lot of other opportunities opening up for me to do things like be on a comedy board game podcast or contribute to kind of comedic style videos for Watch It Played, and stream myself playing board games on Twitch. And it's kind of opened up all these other opportunities. So that's my journey. Becca, why don't you tell us about yours?
Okay. Yes. Friends, you will notice this is formatted a little differently than some of the other talks. I was asked to do a talk and I said, no way. I will interview Paula and Paula will interview me. So we are dual interviewing.
That's right.
And now you know the backstory there.
Really, neither one of us could decide on who should be the host. We both went, well, I should be the host. No, I should be the host.
I should be the host.
Compromise. We'll both be hosts.
We'll both be the host. But because I made the layout, I got to be left, and everyone reads left to right. So obviously,
that's true. So you are the most important one. Yeah, I concede that.
So my journey to tabletop came through being a nerd like you, doing comedy, doing improv, doing it together, and I was also hustling on film production sets in LA. I got lucky enough to stumble onto a set for Geek and Sundry, or rather they stumbled onto my set. And then I pitched doing a show called Game the Game to them, which ended up being co-hosted by Ivan Van Norman. And we did it for many years live on Twitch, which was kind of, I think we were the first of our kind to choose Twitch as our platform.
Yeah, I really think you were. Y'all really were in on the ground floor on a lot of the Twitch streaming. I agree with that.
Well, little do people know, we started on the same network as Critical Role, but we started 1 week earlier. So we have one more episode than Critical Role at the time. Fun stuff. If you live under rocks, you won't know that.
You don't know what Critical Role is.
It is. It's Critical Role.
It's a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors playing D&D.
Well said. Well said.
Not that I watch it or anything. Not that I'm a big fan.
No. Who would be? We all are. We all are. Matt Mercer is akin to a god. My story. And then started playing a tabletop game a week on the internet. I kind of, had my board game collection and hadn't yet been to a board game convention, and my eyes were not yet opened to the wide world of gaming until started playing on that weekly show, discovering more games, researching more games, and becoming a member of the tabletop community. And that was 6 years ago now. So I've been playing games on the internet for a good amount of time. And
I kind of think you might be an expert at it.
I think you might be an expert at it. I think we are experts at this. I never get to use the bleep button, and they told me to keep it family friendly. That is literally what I called us in my notes. So what I want to talk about with us experts is about the importance of the community that you build with gaming, and the communities that we're trying to build and their value. So you're playing a tabletop game with friends just casually because it's a way to connect, because not only is it super fun to use the parts of your brain that stretch that strategic and problem-solving muscle, but you're also doing that with friends in a way that forms a bond with those friends. And what Paula and I do is do that on the internet with people from all over the world that are watching us, but also connecting with one another and, you know, playing online games with one another when we're not streaming. And we get to be in this lucky position of like being a connector of other people and sharing this gift of gaming that brings people together and helps friendships form like our own. And what that sort of means and how you can get into this world and get into a community or establish your own community. Paula, thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's really true that games, I think inherently there's something that is special about games is their ability to create a community, to give you something to connect over. You know, like if you go to a convention and maybe you sit down at a table with people you don't know, by the end of your 2-hour game with them, even if you had nothing else to talk about, you can talk about the experience that you just had. And that could be a stepping off point for a deeper relationship that continues to grow from there. Like I feel really lucky that my best friends are people I met through board games.
Aww.
And they really, it's so true. And it's just like, I feel lucky every day that I discovered a hobby that gave me the hobby that I discovered facilitated my relationships with these people. And it gives us something to, it really does. It gives us something to connect over. You know, when I'm with them playing a game, when we're playing a game together, and we may talk about this more later as well, in more of our kind of performative aspect of it, but I care less about how well I'm doing at the game and more about how that game is facilitating the ability to interact with my friends.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that like makes the communities, it makes board gaming this special place to build these communities.
Yes, I do want to get into that in a minute, but first I want to stay on this sort of like what we're creating and why. I think especially for introverts, which we aren't really. I'm an introvert extrovert. I feel like you're more of an extrovert, but I don't know. You might have some introvert qualities.
I'm a little bit of both. Yeah, but yeah.
But that thing you were just talking about of sitting down at a table with someone you've never met, like I've done so at conventions, and sometimes, especially if people have seen a video, they might be nervous to talk to you. Maybe they're just a shy person in general. But you sit down with them and you play a game and people open up because they get to role play a little bit as their character. Or they just have this cutthroat move that they're so excited to do. And it can be a way for people that have trouble connecting to connect. And that's something I find really beautiful about it because, you know, we may be charismatic, but we're nerds. And
we are also just people who want to play games and who might actually be bad at them. I love games. I love making content about games. I'm actually not very good at playing them.
No, Paula,
I lose a lot, and that's okay.
That's okay though, because as you pointed out, that's not necessarily the goal.
That's not the point.
We should talk more about advice for reorienting so that you're not too much win focused if it's a non-competitive play, of course.
But tricky.
I want to talk about how do we make the community inclusive?
Yeah, I think, how do we make the community inclusive?
Or like, what do you do when you're streaming to like make sure that you're drawing people in? I guess we are getting sort of into the art performative skill of it, of playing games on the internet, basically.
Well, I think being intentional about the game you're choosing to play is part of, and this extends from when we are streaming a game or recording a playthrough of a game that might go up on YouTube to having a game night or picking something out at a convention. What is going to facilitate the kind of interaction that you feel like your group is after? You know, if I want my Twitch chat to feel included in the game I'm playing, I might choose for a stream a roll and write, you know, the kind that it's like 1 to 100. You don't need a copy of the game. They can download a score sheet and play along with you. That's a great way to involve your community in with you. Or you look at your group of people at a convention and you're like, okay, we don't really know each other yet. Just from a little bit of conversation about the kinds of things we like, I know everyone here is going to be interested in, you know, a fantasy theme. Okay. And, you know, because it's a little bit newer. Maybe I'm going to pick something slightly lighter, because that's going to help us talk to each other a little more because we're going to be less in our strategic brain. And also, it'll feel a little less competitive. Or, okay, this group, I know that this group is really great, but I also know that there are a couple of people who like to take over and tell everyone what to
What?
do. So I won't choose a co-op game. I will choose a competitive game that lets people really focus in on their own strategy. I think being really mindful of your group or your scenario and how you pick a game, either theme or mechanics, that will facilitate the most positive experience that group can have, I think is a really, not really an easy way because you have to give it some thought, but a pretty straightforward way of creating an inclusive environment. What do you think, Becca? I know that
Oh,
I'm
heck
sure there's
yeah.
lots of other ways to approach it, but yeah.
You said that too perfectly. I mean, choose the game for the players. Yeah, exactly. It's all about making sure that people are having fun, and the more games you play, the more you realize some people's personalities gravitate towards one type of game over another. And that
Mm-hmm.
goes same as when you're streaming games, like whether you're having guests come on to play with you or whether you're playing with chat. Make sure that it's something that is right for the setting. Like
Yeah.
oh, what's this game? Anything that's like a social deduction game. If
Mm-hmm.
you have people that really don't like confrontation at your table, that's not going to be good. They're
Yeah.
not going to want to murder their friends or
Mm-hmm.
like accuse them because that can be a friendship killer. So maybe
Yeah.
that is a cooperative situation, or you need a cooperative slash competitive because some people would totally let themselves not let themselves be steamrolled. Some people like me would steamroll the game, as you were saying. So go for like a more chill. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
I recently played Succulent by J. Alex
Ooh,
Cavern.
yeah.
Yeah, from Renegade, and that's a really nice competitive. Yet everyone's doing their own thing, making a beautiful garden, and you can give
Mm-hmm.
some other people benefits through your succulent planting. So something like that is nice.
Mm-hmm. And I
And
don't think you need to be a mind reader. This might feel like a lot of pressure on you as the organizer of being like, how do I know what's going to be right for everyone? Ask. I think we should normalize having like a session zero that you might have for an RPG if you're familiar with that. Spend a little time asking your group, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And that way you don't have to guess. You can have an open conversation where people lay out boundaries and interests, and then you can tailor the experience to that.
yeah. So speaking
Mm-hmm.
of choosing the right game for the right setting, maybe we should talk about what we've learned in streaming games, what actually is really bad for streaming.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like I love the game Everdell. I just played an entire Sunday where we just played over and over
Oh,
with all the
nice.
expansions.
Mm-hmm.
And playing it on stream, I realized there's way too much secret strategy
Yeah.
planning. You can't say what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're streaming, do you find yourself having to learn the skill of narrating your turns differently?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think for me, absolutely. I try to always narrate out what I'm doing, especially if I'm the one running the stream, because then typically the people watching can see my secret information. And so even if I know it's going to give my opponent a little window into what I'm doing and might hurt me strategically, like on a regular game night, I wouldn't say I'm playing this card because I'm hoping to set up XYZ engine that my opponent could block now that I said it out loud, but I want everyone watching to know what I'm thinking, because you know what isn't fun to watch on is this.
Ooh,
You know, like
oh, mm-hmm.
because who
I have a, yeah.
because no one goes to a game night to stand around and watch other people play a game. They go to play the game. And so you need to, if you're streaming a game or playing a game for other people's entertainment, you need to make them feel like they're part of your strategic process, I think, by letting them in. And sometimes that hurts your personal outcome in the game.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah. What about you? I know that, man, I love playing games with Becca. Becca, like, I feel like you're like, you really get into like, I want to like have a good strategy and like figuring it all out. Do you feel like that gets hampered when you are streaming a game?
100%. So I'm going to go back and relive, in-person days of playing Game the Game, which was strictly live on Twitch, and then it moved to YouTube where it was edited, which is so crazy to have someone go through and edit your 4-hour board game endeavor, which was so nice to have had that experience of getting to provide people with that kind of content. But it was very much you're teaching new people how to play a game for an audience every time you have new guests, which Paula, you just naturally were good at as a performer and gamer, so it was always a delight to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
But there is this thing that I give people a note beforehand of like, it feels bad if you're being very strategic, but I need you to describe in detail, like it's a podcast, every turn and narrate your move. Sometimes you play a card and you get your coins and your resources and you're like, I hope nobody saw that, because if they did see that, they would put together that I'm working towards, redeeming this goal that only one person can get. Yeah, exactly. And react and be blocking. But it's kind of the sacrifice you make to make it entertaining and for other people to really understand the strategy going into it from afar, and make them feel like they're playing along as well. So it is a whole different way of playing. At the same time, the reason I love games is because I'm ruthlessly competitive. Like, I am the steamroller in co-op games. And that's why I don't particularly like co-op games, because I'm like, you mean the game where I play for 5 people? I mean, I do like co-op games. I just kind of have to like talk myself down of like, we're playing a game together. This is the experience. We're meditating here in our gameplay. But it is such a different thing to be bringing people in and a learned skill. But if anybody wants to be a streamer, especially in the tabletop world, you got to practice narrating your turns at the expense of strategy.
Well, and people will come back to your stream, not necessarily because of your gameplay, but because of you and what's unique and fun about watching you. So even if it doesn't mean like narrating every moment of like, well, here's all like step 1, get that resource. Step 2, collect this other resource. Step 3, spin them on this. Step 4, gain the victory point. Even if you don't want to lay that all out for everyone, I think at least narrating like how you're feeling in the moment can be another good way to balance that gives people an emotional window into almost like vicariously playing the game with you, like we were saying, being like, ooh, I'm so nervous because I need a specific resource and I'm hoping I'm going to get it. And I'm so like, whoa, what a relief. I was able to get that resource. Becca didn't move on the space that I wanted. So man, I feel really good about that.
Do you get that feeling where your heart is pounding out of your chest when you don't want someone to take your thing?
Yes. That's why I can't play Lords of Waterdeep. I get very stressed out about how my spot I want to go is going to get taken. And it always happens the turn right before mine. And then I have to rethink my whole turn.
Yeah. You're like, I did plan ahead. Don't yell at me for taking too long. My spot was taken.
My plans were thwarted. And so with that in mind, Becca, have you found that there are specific types of games that work better for this kind of thing that we're talking about?
Yes. Anything that makes your eyes up here instead of in your cards, or rather like makes you need to interact on other people's turns. If you're engaged in other people's turns, then you're not silently plotting, and then that allows for table talk, especially games that require some sort of diplomacy, no, just kidding, that require some sort of like negotiation, are always really great to stream. I had a really fun time. I'm just going to shout out one specific game. We had a fun time playing Ghost Rider.
We did. That was
couple
really fun.
Weeks ago? Yeah. Or any sort of that like a team game where there is like a sort of camaraderie, So anything that provokes the emotional response you were talking about, I think
Yeah.
is good entertainment. Watching people
Yeah.
get heated is fun.
Yeah. And man, sometimes I will say, sometimes I play a game on stream and like 4 rounds in, it's like, oh, there's 1 round left. And then all of a sudden, like, I'll look up and be like, sorry, everyone, we haven't said anything in 3 minutes. We both just got very, just even acknowledging, like, we both just got very into our strategy for a moment. Hey, sorry, let me talk to you about what I was just thinking and why I got so quiet. And
Yeah, absolutely. This also makes me think of a really big lesson that I learned, especially in the days where Ivan and I co hosted the show. We became so competitive with one another specifically because we played a lot of 4-player games, but we were the two constants at the table. So if we were playing a game where you can, take a resource from another player and you choose someone, or you can kind of like just kind of pick on a different player. A lot of games have this mechanic.
Yeah, kind of a take that sort of thing.
Exactly. We would always go for each other to make sure that we were being nice to our guests. And what ended up happening is that we would always go for each other in such a cutthroat way. Neither of us would ever win. Not that winning is the important part there, but it would feel bad after. And we had a talk one time that was like, hey, we need to make sure that we're not, because we're trying to be an accommodating table for the new people and we feel so comfortable with each other, we also need to be careful of each other and be accommodating towards each other. And it kind of taught me this lesson that you really, your competitiveness can get in the way of friendships as well.
That's so true.
Yeah, I was joking about, friendship killers in games like diplomacy or games like certain social deduction games. I think that it is a learned skill to remember that you're there to be with other people first and you're there to play a game second. And win the game third or fourth.
Yeah. Well, this makes me think, it kind of goes back to that almost that session 0 thing that I was talking about before. So most of the time when I'm streaming a board game online, I'm streaming it with my friend Matthew Jude. And neither one of us are big. We kind of talk up our trash talk to each other on stream because it's fun, but we don't really mean it. And we do sometimes the same thing, have to go, hey, sorry about that thing I said when we were playing a game. I didn't mean that. Or recently we played a game on stream. We actually played Brew, which is a new game from Pandasaurus. And beforehand, I was like, oh, I heard that this has a lot of take that in it. Before we go into this stream, how do we want to play it? Do we want to lean in to being mean to each other, or do we want to choose the nicer strategies? Because in a lot of games, you can choose to not do the take that actions. And so we just decided ahead of time, let's lean into it. Let's play really mean and know going in we're doing that. So we're both prepared emotionally for it and won't take it personally. And so again, it's like, have that, even with people you know really well, have that conversation ahead of time. How do we want this game to go? And then and you're set up for it.
That is so smart.
Yeah.
Have a session 0 for board game night. I love it. I love that. That's a new one for me, and I'm gonna keep it when board games playing in person becomes okay again, as hopefully everybody's getting vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. Yes. And we all kind of, even if we didn't feel socially awkward before, we're going to now. So yeah, even more of a reason to sort of like make sure you set out ground rules so everybody has a good time. Just check in. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I want to talk just about streaming in general, and if we're helping to share our expertise at being tabletop streamers, what are some tips and tricks that you've learned for the actual like tech side of streaming games?
Well, here's the first thing I've learned, and this is the bit of advice I give anyone who asks me, who wants to start to stream, is that something tech-wise will go wrong. It will. That is what streaming is. Your audio is suddenly not going to work, even though you didn't change anything in your settings, or the camera's going to get weird, or this or that. It's okay. Don't stress out. It happens to everyone. I've been streaming for 4 years and I still have tech issues sometimes on my stream. So it happens to everyone, and that your audience will help you catch it. And also I think it's a lot more understanding for those kinds of things because they know like, hey, this is live. It's kind of a miracle we can even do this in the first place, I feel like, with the technology. So just know it's okay. Troubleshoot, figure it out, and then go, okay, here it is. It's fixed. Oh, I just needed to adjust, this thing in my OBS settings. And now the microphone's coming through. So just know like things might go wrong, and that's okay, is my first bit of advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Oh gosh, I've never not started a stream muted.
Yeah, right? You're like, oh, oops, cool. Great.
My starting soon screen, I gotta be muted, or just in case I don't want to be yelling at the dog, people hear, and then forget to unmute. Yeah, I love that. Also, just so grateful for all of the advancements and like the way I know it's a really difficult transition for the industry to have to also make sure they're creating a digital version for Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia because that's not how they get compensated for all their work in building a game. So make sure that if you are a frequenter of digital versions of games, that you remember you're only supporting the creators if you buy the hard copy of the game.
And especially if you're streaming, check, especially on some platforms like Tabletop Simulator, some of that stuff are community submitted mods for those games. Double check and see if it's an endorsed script made by the publisher before you stream it. I think that's a really important thing to do. And some publishers won't mind. I have in the past reached out to a publisher and been like, hey, I really want to stream your game. It's only on Tabletop Simulator. It's not an official script. May I have your permission? And they'll either say, yes, we want the publicity of people seeing the game, or they'll go, no, for licensing, art asset rights, whatever reason, please don't. And then you've shown a lot of respect to their product. So just always double check if you are going to be the one streaming the game. I would say always check and see if it's an officially supported version of the game by the publisher.
That's a really nice detail to note. Yeah, to check in on that. I usually like to give people a heads up if I'm going to play their game in case they want to retweet or whatever. And it's really good to know that sometimes these mods are not sanctioned.
Not always official. Yeah.
Let's see. Kind of related to what we were talking about not getting too deep into strategy in terms of what's happening audio-wise, like making sure you're talking through turns and keeping the conversation moving during the game. Also, as you said, in the seat where you're controlling, you can't just be looking at your own cards. You kind of need to be looking at the active player's turn for people to actually follow along with what's happening. So that's a whole other, you're also a camera person.
And in a platform like Tabletopia, for example, you can actually set cameras. So if you set yourself as view in Tabletopia and then you hit like shift 1, that then sets that camera. Now, every time you hit 1, it'll take you right to that view. And if you set those before you go, it really helps. So that is definitely a strategy, a piece of advice I have if you are streaming using a game with Tabletopia.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Use the camera shortcuts.
Yes.
And what was I going to say? Read the rule book. Make sure you know
how to play the game.
Before you try and teach it to other people, as you may find several videos of me doing on the internet. Half knowing the rules, reading it beforehand if you're playing with other people is always advantageous.
It helps.
Yeah.
Stream in 720p. Don't try to stream at 1080 unless some people have the right setup for it. But most people, if you're going to your stream setups, put your output at 720 if you're having a hard time. If you're streaming and you're like, why do I keep dropping frames? Why is this happening? Go and check. If your streaming output is HD, that might be an issue. So go check and lower it to 720p, see if that fixes things for you.
Oh, heck yeah. Great tip. I just bought a fancier computer. Should have just... checked with Paula.
Well, now you have a nicer version of your stream output.
Yeah, no, but that's a really good point. It is much better to have an overall lower quality broadcast output than to have people dealing with lags and drop frames.
Which happens sometimes. You're like, what?
All right. Well, there's not too much more I want to cover, but except to talk about kind of the role that tabletop can play and has played in the global community. And well, why do you see tabletop gaming as important for people, Paula?
Well, I think it goes back to that thing I was saying before about how it's facilitated a lot of personal connections for me with people who I would not have met otherwise. If it wasn't for board games, some of the closest people in my life I wouldn't know. And I think, again, that's the magic of board games is it gives you something to connect with people over, people who maybe don't live anywhere near you. Maybe there's someone you met in a chat room of someone's Twitch stream. And now you see them in other chats on other streams. And now you're messaging with them on Discord because and now you're like, oh, we're friends. And it's just because we hang out in the same Twitch streams. Or, oh, we met at a convention and we played this game together and we still talk and now we're friends. Or, like, I think it gives, we need more things to connect over. I hit my microphone. I'm sorry, everyone. We need more things to connect over. In a time that I think a lot of things feel very divisive. And I think we need to humanize people in order to find progress, and having something that's some common ground helps with that. And I think games gives us a common ground. That's what I think.
Paula,
what do you think, Becca?
Said. I so much
I should
agree
ask
with
you first, so you can answer first.
I don't want to answer first. I want to hear your beautiful answer. Yeah. I love that. Our time is divisive. Our time is also, we're so disconnected because of technology. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we're becoming connected. So in that beautiful example you just mentioned, people meeting in a chat and realizing that they are now virtual friends, maybe will someday be real world friends if they meet at a convention or something like that. I think that so much of our lives become seeing other experiences, like whether watching television or watching other streams. And so when we play games with people, we're having an experience for ourselves when so much is becoming us experiencing things vicariously. Not that you shouldn't watch me and Paula stream. You should definitely watch me and Paula stream.
Watch us experience it vicariously, decide for yourself, is this an experience I also want to have? Then get that game and have your own experience.
Yeah, and then, it is important to have our own experiences where we can have the opportunity to bond with people over our shared love of gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one other thing I want us to quickly talk about if we have time, Becca. Do we have time?
We have infinite time.
Infinite time. Yeah. Well, as we discussed earlier, we both know that's not totally true, but I know one of the things we had sort of thrown around talking about was what are mistakes we think new tabletop creators should be avoiding. And you could turn that around to be sort of a positive spin. What's advice, not just technical advice, for tabletop creators? And I have a thought about this, but I don't want to just ask the question and then answer first again. So unless you want me to. I'll tell
you. I got one.
Okay.
Gatekeeping. No gatekeeping. You mentioned like seeing a need and a niche for a female creator in the space and more female creators in the space. We also need more people of color in this space. And I feel proud to be, when young girls go online and start looking up stuff about games, for them to see a woman, I think is so important. And I think for people to realize that games are for everyone is important. And if anybody is gatekeeping, or which meaning like, saying this is kind of like it's only for people of a certain level, or it's only for a certain type of brain or person to play this game, that's not the way to build a community, and that's only diminishing your own ability to learn new things, to experience working with new people. So let those walls down.
Yeah. And I would say this sort of goes hand in hand with that a little bit. Don't feel like you have to do what you're seeing other people do in the content creation landscape. If you don't see an example of yourself out there, just like, we were saying that we sort of did, be the person who represents yourself. Like I don't see a lot of people who are like me in content creation, so I can't do it. No, yes, you can. Make the thing you wish existed. Don't feel like you need, I think a lot of people, streaming wise or otherwise, look and they go, I need to make videos like this other channel. I need to make videos that are like what the Dice Tower does or what Watch It Play does or what anyone, anyone, slot in anyone there. But no, you don't. You need to make the videos that are who you are. And it doesn't need to be some like soul searching moment of like, well, who am I? Just think like, what would you enjoy watching? What makes you unique? Put that in your videos. Be you. And that is what's going to give them that spark and set them apart from other people who are doing something similar. That's what's going to draw people to you. So don't feel like you need to copy anyone else. Find what you want to see and then make that. I really, truly think that's important. And I also truly think that's why my own work found a foothold. Because I found a unique intersection of the two things that I love that are very uniquely me. Gaming nerd, comedy nerd.
Done. Found it. Nailed it. Find your unique voice and sing with it. Love that.
So that's what I think. That's what I think.
So beautifully said. Is there any other topics that you wanted to cover, things you want to discuss?
I feel like we talked about so many good things, I think.
I think this is like the best panel on here.
Probably. The most expertise, probably.
It's hard to comprehend how much great information was just given to all these people.
I mean, so much. If you took notes, list back to us all the great information you got so that we can start to comprehend it.
There you go. There you have it. Thanks so much to all of you for watching and for being a part of the audience for this D4 Creative Conference. We appreciate you. Thank you, Paula, for being a part and for imparting all your wonderful knowledge.
Becca, thank you for asking me to join you. It's been very, very fun to talk with you about all this stuff.
Yeah, I was enlightened
I was enlightened by you also. And by you. We have that in common.
Yeah, we were all enlightened. Thanks, Paula.
Thanks, Becca.
Thanks, everybody at home.
Bye, y'all.